Today you will hear from two colleagues working in international higher education. Dr. Wang Xiaoqing, who is associate professor at the School of Education in Huanzhou University of Science and Technology. So he did his PhD at Peking University, and he did study on issues of internationalization, published quite a good number of books and papers in important Chinese and international journals, received 12 academic awards, and served as PI for 9 research projects. And my good friend and colleague here in Hong Kong, Dr. Kun Dai, he's assistant professor at the Department of Educational Administration and Policy in the Faculty of Education in the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So his research also includes focuses on international and comparative education, transnational higher education, education policy. And he is also a very prolific writer, publishing in many important journals like Higher Education, Studies in Higher Education, and many others. So you will probably find his name in many publications. And he co-authors with one of my doctoral students who is also here. And I'm happy that we have developed this collaboration. So Kun suggested we have this kind of important webinar. And I was really happy to hear that he has this kind of excitement about participating in our series. So today they will speak, Dr. Wang and Dr. Dai will speak on what it really means to educate at home, for internationalization at home, while cultivating the intercultural competence. So how this internationalization at home and intercultural competence relate to each other, and what it really means for institutions and learners in China. So without further ado, let me invite Dr. Kun to speak about the project, and then we also will hear from his colleague, Dr. Wang. So, Kun, please.
Thanks, Professor Anatoly, for hosting us to present in your seminar. And also, nice to see many new friends and old friends online here before the Chinese New Year. Hopefully, our presentations will give you some kind of ideas about how Chinese university students develop some kind of intercultural competence at home. So this project actually led by Professor Wang Xiaoqing from Huazhong University of Science and Technologies. I, as a co-author, joined his project a couple of years ago. So this project, from the title you can see, we try to explore how these, students, Chinese students, develop intercultural competence at home rather than going overseas or, study abroad or doing some exchange studies. So that's a brief kind of topic. But now I will introduce some kind of key papers we publish in international publisher and journals, and also in the Chinese CSCI papers. You can see something here. If you're interested, you can find them online in your university library. Particularly this book, Developing Intercultural Competence at Home, we published this book last year at Routledge. We did a Chinese book launch later last year. And now, taking these opportunities, we want to introduce more about the research rather than just about the book. So you can see several papers Dr. Wang has published, related to this topic, and also some of his, research students also involved in this kind of project to building more kind of evidence-based research about how Chinese students develop their intercultural competence at home. So for today's next, please. For today's presentations, and we will briefly introduce 6 parts, but as a normal kind of standard academic presentations. So I will briefly introduce the research background and research issues, and then I will pass the time to Professor Wang and let him to introduce the research. And finally, I will summarize the study or the presentation by introducing some future research directions, what we want to do for next. And also, this research is supported by several key national fundings. I think Professor Wang will also introduce later. So first, let me quickly introduce the research background and the research issues we identified from the literature and also from the context in the Chinese higher education. So one of the key terms or the key background we want to introduce is the internationalization at home in China. So when we talk about the internationalization of higher education, people normally talk about, study abroad or other kind of ways to doing this kind of international exchange or communication, collaboration or mobilities. And also the research in the past decades mainly focus on, this kind of internationalization abroad. Many different kind of countries and scholars and also practitioners develop different kind of collaborations internationally. But at the same time, maybe you also noticed another key term highlighted here, or a phenomenon people in the higher education part start to focus on is the internationalization at home. Of course, many practices can be done to enhance the internationalization at home. But what's the outcome? What's the result for this from a student perspective? In the Chinese context, still lack enough research. For example, here specifically we highlighted something about the internationalization at home strategies in the Chinese higher education history. Of course, this is just some examples related to, for example, transnational higher education in the initial stage. You can see here, Johns Hopkins University, Nanjing University Center for the Chinese American Centers, and later, many others, kind of University of Nottingham, Ningbo, and also New York University in Shanghai, this kind of international branch campus, and also has many kind of joint programs or these kind of transnational collaborations to making the international resources to transfer from different parts of the world to China. And also in some elite university, you can see here, like Peking University have Yanqing Academy, and also in Tsinghua University have similar Swordsman Academy to foster the so-called global elite in the Chinese context. But in these, the elite universities, they try to, enhancing their own institutional internationalizations through building or establishing these different kind of institutions or, collaborative universities. So those practices enable most of Chinese students to, get some kind of international experiences at home without going overseas. The relationship between, the internationalization at home experiences and their university students' intercultural competence in recent years, we noticed has been becoming a emerging research topic in several fields. For example, in the intercultural competence from psychological perspectives, and also from higher education, and also from education policies. In terms of the key concept, intercultural competence, you can see here we cited one of the well-known definition proposed by Professor Deldorf. Refers to effective, appropriate behavior and communications in intercultural situations. Of course, this, her kind of definition is very brief. We just pick up some key concept here. Some other similar terms you can see: intercultural communications or competence or intercultural sensitivities. They are interchangeably used in scholarly conversations or in academic publications. So, but now in this research we use the intercultural competence as a key terms to framing the research. So the development of university students, intercultural competence, not becoming a very important, not only becoming important issues in the Chinese context, also, of course, in other countries also become very important. So the intercultural competence becoming a very important kind of educational goals for many, Chinese university in the recent years, especially they are building some kind of world-class, double first world-class university, for example, or it's, international rankings or other things to, highlight the importance of the internationalizations. So the outcome or, what we try to find out through, these policies or practices is how the Chinese student they respond to this kind of internationalized educational practices or policies in the Chinese context. So, existing research, you can see here, we briefly summarized some key gaps or some key issues in the current study, and also based on our own teaching and learning experiences in the Chinese universities in different part of the, in Nanjing, Wuhan, or in Beijing, or in Shandong, other provinces, based on our some practical observations, still has very, you know, a lot of gaps being addressed. Of course, our research cannot, answer all these kind of questions. We pick up some key issues highlighted here. So little research attentions have been focused on development of Chinese university students' IC development in the Chinese context, especially from the international communities. As we know, maybe if you read Chinese journals, some Chinese scholars they published several initial research in CSSCI journals. But the strategies and also the studies still in a very initial stage. So we try to build on this field or existing studies to making these issues in the international conversations, let people from different parts of the world to know what happens in the Chinese context. And also, please going back to the previous slides, haven't. Yes. The second part you can see here, most of the existing study we noticed they have done is based on single case research. So maybe just in one university or in just one case, we try to explore a little bit more, expand the sample size to see whether some existing research or our own explorations have somehow a generalized result can emerge from other type of Chinese universities. So that's one kind of methodological gap we understand. And also from a theoretical perspective, Dr. Wang will introduce later, is most of the theory in terms of the intercultural competence proposed by the so-called Western scholars. So many kind of theories or to introduce or to explain this intercultural development, we don't know how these kind of theory being applied in the Chinese context, especially in the internationalization at home, these kind of practices. So we don't know that. Most of the existing research focus on, for example, Chinese students, they go to the US, go to Australia, go to some other places, how they develop their intercultural sensitivities or competence in through study abroad. So that's also making us feel very curious about how these kind of so-called Western developed theories being used in the Chinese context, or whether we can find some empirical evidence to further develop these kind of intercultural competence theories. Of course, some Chinese scholars develop, the Chinese version kind of theoretical models. We also consider and also try to incorporate these, Western or Chinese theories in our study. And also, you can see here, so this study, we choose three level first-class universities in the mainland China as cases to understand, the pathway or the experience of the Chinese domestic student development of IC within the context of internationalization at home. Many strategies next may be used. Dr. Wang will introduce later. So several research sub-questions being proposed under the main questions. You can see highlighted the red questions, the main questions we try to ask. How do Chinese college students or university students develop IC at Chinese universities? The five sub-questions being proposed. To address these questions, we use different methods. Also, we developed our own questionnaires has been published within the book to try to find something more kind of localized Chinese-based intercultural survey or questionnaire or tools to collect more data in the future to get more kind of validated result to examine our thoughts or relevant theories. So that's the research background and also the key issues or questions we try to ask in this research. Of course, as this is not one study. Actually, several studies being done related to this topic under each kind of sub-questions. So now I think pass the time to Dr. Wang to let him to introduce more kind of details about the theoretical development based on our kind of review of this intercultural competence theory and also what we have done to do the empirical research. So now pass the time to Dr. Wang. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dai. It's my turn. Next, I will introduce the theoretical framework of our series research. We reviewed four intercultural competency theory. The first is Bred's developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. The DMS is a framework to explain the observed and reported experience of people in intercultural situations. DMS has 6 stages: denial, defense, minimization, acceptance, adaptation, and integration. The first 3 stages are ethnocentric, which means that one person considers his or her culture as the center of the reality. The last 3 stages are ethno-relative, which means that the one experiences his or her own culture in the context of other cultures. And the last of 6 phrases of DMS has not yet been demonstrated. Some researchers have also revised the Bred's theory as minimized has been shown to be somewhere between ethnocentrism and anthro-realism and not closer to anthropocentrism. And Bred himself pointed out that his theory is a Western and male bias. The cultural sensitivity should be expressed in more non-linear ways. Second, human behavior should be understood in the positivist terms of objective science. The second is Bred's intercultural communicative competency. It's very famous in foreign language learning field. The ICC theory consists of 2 parts. One is the relationship between IC and ICC. So here, these 2 terms are different. And the other is the relationship between ICC and the locations of learning. In the first part, we can find that IC includes attitudes, knowledge, skills, and critical culture awareness. Critical culture awareness is in the core of IC. Bred's ICC model emphasizes that language competency plays a key role, that there is a link between language competency and competencies that consist of IC, and that the introduction of language competency transfer IC into ICC. The different elements of intercultural competence are intertwined. It includes a summary of locations where ICC can be acquired in order to reflect his emphasis on the educational dimensions. So there are 2 contributions about this theory. First, his model has greatly broadened the IC system with a focus on the interaction between various abilities, which is helpful for a comprehensive understanding of ICC. Secondly, he raised the term intercultural criticality, as some scholars pointed that the ICC model places particular emphasis on evaluative relativistic intercultural criticality, which is the set factors for developing IC in communicative, learning-centered foreign language education. Of course, it has its own limitations, as Gao pointed that this model doesn't explain the foundation and interconnection of two concepts of IC and ICC. The primary and secondary relationship between various abilities and the core role of cultural values in ICT theory also need to be explored. Second, compared with many existing models, the ICC model is particularly pedagogical and suitable only for formal language learning. Its implication on actual intercultural communication is limited. So that means Brem's theory is limited by the fact that its explanatory power is usually more appropriate in the field of foreign language learning, and its applicability in other contexts require further empirical support. So a more universal intercultural competence theory, such as Derdov's theory, is needed. Derdov mentioned two theoretical frameworks. One is a primitive of intercultural competence, and the other is a process model of intercultural competence. Whatever which one is, they are the same elements of the framework: attitudes, knowledge, skills, internal and actual outcomes. We know Derdov as the internal and actual outcome beyond traditional attitudes, knowledge, and skills. Internal outcomes refer to the reference transformation of existing frameworks, like adaptation, flexibility, anthropographic perspective, and empathy. Actual outcomes refer to effective and appropriate interactions and behaviors in cross-cultural context. These two frameworks actually in Derdov's later literature, she preferred process model of intercultural competency. Like most scholars in this field, also prefer this model. Derdov herself also pointed that her theory model is American-centric, as other scholars pointed that future research should provide perspectives from other contexts in the world. In addition, scholars have also suggested a revision to the model, like the language ability. Derdov didn't emphasize the importance of the foreign language in her framework. Finally, China scholars also raised their own intercultural competence theory, like 知行合一 model of Chinese college students ICC. Based on Brem's ICT model and Derdov's pyramid model of intercultural competency, Gao integrated the theoretical perspectives of Chinese and Western thinkers of knowing, 知, and doing, 行. He creatively proposed the unity of and transformation between know and practice, 知行合一, in constructing Chinese college students ICC. As he pointed that 知行合一 was proposed by the Chinese philosopher Yang Mingwang in the Song Dynasty. The diamond of knowing 知 includes knowledge, awareness, and critical thinking. The diamond of doing 行 includes attitudes, skills, and strategies. Of course, Gao's model has been a pioneer in many localization exploration about the local ICC or IC theory. But there are not many Chinese elements in the specificity of this theory. In contrast, Wang and her colleagues used Blem's ABC as theoretical model to reflect the Chinese traditional philosophical tenets in IC, such as 不卑不亢, 推己及人, 求同存异. Another pity is that there are also no other more relevant empirical studies based on Gao's theory. So the explanatory power and vitality of the theory cannot be evaluated further. Synthesizing the advantage, disadvantage, and ability of the IC theories, our study adopts Derdov's theory for four reasons. Firstly is it inherits the procedural nature of Burnet's theory and avoids the latter's communing approach. Some research point that it's difficult to verify the last stage integration. Second, the Siri has a wide range of applications far beyond the context of foreign language teaching and learning. Thirdly, it clearly advocates localized perspectives. Finally, existing research has shown that this zero works well in understanding students' adaptability in the context of Chinese higher education. Third part is research design. As we mentioned above, we have conducted serious studies employing diverse of methods like the mixed methods, quantitative methods, and traditional speculative research methods. To save time, we skip this part. Let's look at the findings of our series research. The first part is speculative research. Dr. Dai, I, and two partners, we have explored the concept practice effect of convergent management for international students in China. You know, in mainland China, international students and local students are separate managed. In our study, we found that CMIs can be divided into semi-convergency, transitional majority convergency, and near complete convergency. The CMS has achieved certain results, but there is still a lack of systematic evidence-based evaluation. We conducted this study because the CMS is one type of IH typer. A second study is about we reviewed many literature about university students IC. Some scholars find that international students IC is influenced by their overseas learning experience. Other scholars find that domestic students IC has been influenced by various IH experience. Even some scholars try to compare the impact of overseas learning experience and IH experience on university students IC. Some comparative analysis suggests that IH experience may yield better results in enhancing the IC of domestic students. So that indicates that the IH are more and more important nowadays. But what are the types of the IH majors in Chinese universities? So we conducted a study to answer this question. We found that the type of IH majors include foreign language learning, faculty internationalization, curriculum learning, extracurricular learning, interaction with international students, extracurricular activities, and senior foreign cooperative project learning. This is Dr. Dai's field. It's very similar to genetics research about the IH. Most of these majors attract the deep involvement of domestic students and internationalize them into their own IH experiences. And the third part is about some quantitative studies. First is Dr. Dai, I, and other two partners. We have explored design and testing of the intercultural competence assessment tools for Chinese college students. Actually, we have designed our own assessment tools, college students intercultural competence way, CSICS. A new version of the scale divides IC into 6 dimensions: attitude, native cultural knowledge, foreign cultural knowledge, understanding skills, and cross-cultural outcomes. We know in David's theory, she divided the IC into attitude, knowledge, skills, internal and actual outcomes. We are a little different. And our IC scale have a total of 37 items. The next study, we pay attention to the impact of teachers' internationalization on students' intercultural competency. Actually, we find that this kind of IH influence students' IC. Furthermore, internationalized courses can also amplify the positive effects of internationalization of teachers on students' acquisition of foreign cultural knowledge and intercultural skills. Then the next question conducted by Dr. Dai, Ms. Huang, and I, we explored the impact of convergent management for international students on Chinese domestic science and engineering students IC based on Peking University, Nanjing University, and Huazhou University of Science and Technology. We found that the CMIS In-class and out-of-class has a significant contribution to the IC of these students in the form of intercultural knowledge, intercultural skills, and outcomes. Among them, SQL CMS will magnify the positive influence of classroom CMS on the acquisition of native cultural knowledge, foreign cultural knowledge, and strengthen the understanding of cultural knowledge of these students. Finally, is the most important research conducted by Dr. DAI and I, our book, Developing Intercultural Competence at Home, Domestic Students' Experience in Chinese Universities. It has conducted by our mixed methods. So we have 3 findings. The first is a quantitative study, second is a qualitative study, and third is integrated results of quantitative and qualitative studies. In the quantitative study, we can find that most of the IH experience have significantly improved students' IC, like the attitude, native cultural knowledge, foreign cultural knowledge, understanding, skills, and outcomes. In addition, in the proportion of international students at the faculty level may significantly affect Chinese students' accumulation of native cultural knowledge and the acquisition of the outcome of IC. Different elements of IC differ significantly regarding such various as gender, religion, father's occupation, mother's education, past international experience, and so on. In the qualitative study, we have examined how Chinese university students develop their intercultural competencies through their IH experience. We find that these students have enhanced their IC through diverse IH experience by using the Chinese example to advance the model. This research indicates that internal outcomes are demonstrated through a shift in perspective and confidence in intercultural communication, while actual outcomes involve the establishment of interpersonal relationship. For example, the confidence in intercultural competence is related to intercultural outcomes. As a student refers that the communication between he and other people in different culture can enhance his confidence in communication with them. It's more direct. Another example is about the establishing international friendship. It's related to actual outcome. One PhD student during her finish the PhD dissertation is about the international students' accreditation in China. She conducted many international students, but she think only one classmate is her good friend. This classmate gave her the most information and helped her to recommend several important interviews to help her to finish the PhD dissertation. So she thought the international student is her good friend. She has established international friendship between two persons. In general, by comparing and integrating the results of quantitative and qualitative studies, we are confident that the IH experience of domestic Chinese university students do have a considerable impact on their IC. 4 out of 7 types of IH experience, like the foreign language learning, faculty internationalization, course learning, and extra activities, have significantly improved their IC. However, other types of IH experience influence still need to be tested on a larger sample. Family background and past international experience can certainly affect the university students' IC. Meanwhile, other individual factors impact still need to be further verified in future studies. Our reflection first is theoretical reflections. In our study, the evaluated tour of the CSICS utilized Delta's theory as a framework to showcase the sound reliability and validity. The validity of the interview structure in collecting data is also granted as the interviews mentioned are 5 dimensions of IC. Furthermore, our study conclusion has been verified in similar studies. Therefore, it can be said that Delta's theory has good applicability to our study. The more important is the revision of Delta's PMIC in the Chinese higher education context, attitude, knowledge, skill, internal and actual outcome. Knowledge condiments of IC consists of both understanding of cultural knowledge and more basic cultural knowledge for Chinese students, local cultural knowledge, and foreign cultural knowledge. It has been also expected by Yang Qichao's the Heart of Tour Europe tour. Confidence can be added to the internal outcome of the IC. It can be divided into two types. Formal confidence is related to solid foreign language abilities. Content confidence is they pay attention to whether the communication between two individuals has achieved meaningful and valuable goals, such as the in-depth communication of university learning between domestic and international students, discussing disciplinary issues and reconciling different political views. Influenced by thousands of years of Confucian culture, Chinese students, including me, often seek to establish good internal interpersonal relationship, like making friends, 交朋友. During cross-cultural communication, we can find the analects of Confucius. It is not delightful to have friends coming from distant quarters. 有朋自远方来，不亦乐乎. The Superman on the grounds of culture meets with his friends, and by their friendship helps his virtue. 君子以文会友，亦有夫人. In contact with friends, one should keep his word. 与朋友交，言而有信. At the government level, the government's commitment is to improve the international relations and other related policies, like the openness of academic search engines and network infrastructure in Chinese university and abroad. At the universal level, serious IH measures can be taken as follows, like strengthen students' foreign language learning, promote faculty internationalization in universities, offer diverse curricula with international elements for students, provide formal resources to facilitate the interaction between Chinese and international students, launch a variety of international curricular activities. At the individual level, first, the students need to adapt to the IH measures by their schools with proactive participation. The more important is transform them into their own IH experience. Secondly, domestic students can also use informal cultural learning resources like social media, film, television, and literature. Finally, students can plan for studying abroad or short-term exchanges according to their needs and conditions, and try the best to release them. There are three contributions about our series of research. The first is compare the previous study on IC of overseas studies in China. Our study took a particular focus on the domestic students' intercultural competence. Secondly, existing studies have focused on how certain type of IH experience, like the foreign language learning intercultural course, influence the students' IC. In contrast, our research focused on more diverse types of IH experience, as we mentioned. Thirdly, our study confirmed the ability of Darwin's theory in the context of Chinese higher education and promoted the possibility of theoretical revision to specific IC dimensions. We believe that all of the reviews align with the components of effect and appropriate communication and behaviors proposed by Darwin's original theory. So the last 5 minutes for Dr. Dai. Your turn.
Thanks, Dr. Wang, for your brief introduction about what you have done. Of course, every research has some limitations. This study also has several key limitations you can see here. Well, we try to expand our research into different kind of universities, but actually we are still focusing on several Chinese elite universities. Of course, in China we have more than 3,000 type of universities. We don't know, other cases. Of course, no one can cover all of these universities, but in the future we may try to explore more samples from different types of universities to try to enhance our generalizability of our research findings. And also we did not measure some individual variables in the data collection, the student foreign language proficiencies or other things. As you know, the IC development is not easy and simple kind of a process. Actually, many factors may influence on their kind of essay development, even though, for example, their family background, as Professor Wang mentioned. So this also gave us some initial result to helping us to refine, further develop the questionnaire. I think Professor Wang and his team at Huazhong University Science Technology is still working on that, try to publish this kind of questionnaire survey design in the near future. And last things is more like the studies, the current data is more cross-sectional, and we did not include it from many other kind of resources, adopted a self-reported measurement to collect data, maybe not that objective enough. So for the future research, you can go to the next slide. Several directions maybe we kind of focus on in the future. First is we try to do more larger scale studies. Probably if we can do some kind of a national level service or to build some kind of a database longitudinally for this type of research, that would be a directions within, in the Chinese higher education context. And also, assessment tools for university, student ISA will be further improved, 3.0 or whatever, based on the, ongoing studies. You can go to the next slide. Finally, follow-up service need to be conducted. Well, the IC is a development, a very dynamic, complex process. We cannot say, you do this study in this time, they will give you some kind of result. Maybe in the futures, we can do some kind of follow-up research. But practically, as you can see highlighted here, Dr. Wang and his team has done some kind of this kind of research, try to making these studies a further step. Some his master students and research students doing some thesis on this topic as well. So now, due to the time limitation, I think our presentation will end here. So now I'll pass the time to Professor Anatoly to host the Q&A sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dai and Dr. Wang. Really interesting project. I will invite colleagues to raise their hands, and if you can just leave probably the screen so that we can just enter the room and we can see each other more. So let's start. I'll use my privilege of the host and I'll begin with several questions before colleagues enter their questions either in the chat or just as I said, they raise their hands. I have two questions. One question is related to that difference that you mentioned about the elite universities, as well as potentially these other universities that are such a large number. So what would be your hypothesis here in terms of major differences that you would anticipate to see maybe in terms of, because you already have so much experience, and before your study, you might have some hunch in terms of what is there in the field, right? The second question that I have is pretty much about policy recommendations. Based on this number of studies that you have done, what would be your advice to institutional leaders, policy makers at other levels, how you would interpret or translate this data for these action people? Any advice, suggestions, ideas?
Yeah. Dr. Wang, you want to address the first questions?
Um, I can answer the second question first.
Okay, sure.
As we mentioned in our report, we think the wise for desires in the universities for the university level, just according to our research results. Um, um, the first is provide formal, strengthen students for foreign language learning. Because in mainland China, we have a English corner, English corner, or comprehensive English learning. We have conducted many years. So our study proved their success about these kind of courses and the extracurricular activities. The second is promote faculty internationalization in universities. Just introduce some students have got a PhD education in abroad, like Dr. Dai or Professor Yu, yeah, and as our teachers in mainland China, and if we have some excellent international students, we also can make him become our teachers in universities. Thirdly, offer diverse curricula with international elements for students, like the bilingual courses. Some courses will be taught in Chinese and English for the international students and Chinese students, or some international courses, foreign language courses, Chinese courses for international students, and so on. First part is provide formal resources to facilitate interaction between Chinese and international students. As we referred, Dr. Dai and I and our partners have conducted several papers about convergence management of international students. That means we will give more opportunities for them to interaction in the class and out of class. Yes, actually, I think now universities have more room to do their best. The fifth is the launch a variety of international school activities. Actually, in our three case universities, there are many diverse, many kind of actual activities about IH, but sometimes it can be attract students to participation in these kind of activities. So the designers should have to do their best to design these kind of activities to attract students, to make students to participate and in this kind of activity and transform into their own internationalization at home experience. I think these five advice will for the desires in the university. Yes. And the first question, maybe you mean about the policy about the IH mayors in these three athlete university?
No, just kind of the first was pretty much you mentioned that your limitations are pretty much about the elite universities,
okay.
and I'm wondering to what extent these non-elite universities, act differently. What is the major difference that you observe?
I got that. Actually, in non-athlete universities, because they have limited resources for their the university development, and they have not very many international teachers. The teachers who have a broad background or these kind of teachers, and they have not enough international courses and extra activities or extra learning, and even they have some problem in their foreign language for domestic students. So our next step will pay more attention to this kind of university. Actually, some experts are very interested to our project and expect just suggest we pay more attention to non-affiliated universities and help them to improve the level of their internationalization at home for them. Yeah, I thank you for your question. I mean, your question also means the wise for us.
Mhm. Okay, thank you so much. And let me just invite other colleagues. I see a question from Juan Pendran saying, my question is, she thanks you, and my question is, was part of the data collection for this project conducted during the pandemic? Or do you think the COVID-19 could have had an impact on students' intercultural competence? So that's the question about the pandemic and the intercultural competence. To what extent this creates a problem or encourages maybe, or even opportunities, supposedly.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
I can
okay.
say something
Dr. Dai
first.
first.
Thanks, Claudia, for your questions. I think this project actually was done during the proposed and conducted during the pandemic. So that's also one kind of overall background for us to investigate these issues because during the pandemic, many students, as we know, they cannot go overseas. And also many kind of universities try to fulfill, the students their kind of learning requirement. But many kind of strategies, many kind of practices disappeared after the pandemic. So the international mobility is recovered, all of this back to normal. So we did not specifically test, the impact of COVID or this is also very difficult to investigate actually through quantitative study. But in our qualitative part and also based on our observations, we definitely see this kind of COVID has some impact on student IC development. Some of them gave up their learning abroad plan, for example. So they still want to develop something, more kind of international skills or international visions. So in this case, they may more actively engage in, some kind of practice offered by their own universities. But yeah, I think that's the COVID for now, as we know, almost nobody mentions that again or in our research. It seems like out of dated kind of research. We cannot, go back to that stage to investigate in details about how this kind of COVID. But thank you for your questions. I think that's a very good point.
Thank you. And yeah, please, Dr. Wang, yeah, you want to?
Thank you, Dr. Dai. I added some information. Actually, the COVID-19 have impacted many aspects of university students' development, as Dr. Dai mentioned about the broad plan. Yeah. But our research pay more attention to explore the factors which can improve domestic students intercultural competence or help them to improve their development of intercultural competence. Actually, there are so many factors about domestic students intercultural competence. If we want to explore whether the COVID-19 have impact on students' IC, I think maybe we will need another new study to answer this question, or we can to review some other study to answer this question. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I can see the hand of Liu Yaqiao. So can you please just ask the question?
Thank you, Anatoly, and thank you, Professor Dai and Professor Wang for your wonderful session. very fruitful data and timely summary about our current understanding of developing intercultural competence through internationalization at home. I'm wondering, after your findings, do you think to what extent like your findings can help us rethink about the contemporary series about cultural competence? We know those the series you mentioned, like of developmental stages, like intercultural competence, are originally through the findings from internationalization abroad, like through transnational mobility. So I really want to know whether your findings like help us to rethink those contemporaries series. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great. Dr. Wang, Dr. Dai.
Thanks, Yacho, for your questions. I think when we're reviewing, this kind of intercultural communication or intercultural competence theories, actually, we realize that, some, researchers, they are from, the psychological background, and also some from intercultural communication background. What they propose, as you can see from the slides, they highlight some different stage, or they have highlighted some kind of different attitude or different kind of personalities people may have to build their intercultural competence. But from our perspective, we think this is something still very abstract somehow. We try to develop something or to identify something more localized based on our Chinese-based empirical studies to see, whether or not we can find something to visualize or to conceptualize, the complexities. Actually, not just the factors about what kind of factors can influence the student ISE, but how they, develop their, ISE, the process. I think that's also a challenging part for us in the research to giving a summarized or a very highly theorized kind of a model, or or a theory or concept to see this is what's the Chinese concept. So I think we are now in the stage still explore a way to conceptualize or theorize something new based on actually real new. It's not something just a testing. In this stage, we are just testing this kind of theory, try to combine different concepts together to develop something. But maybe in the future research, we can try our best if possible. Of course, based on your, comments or other kind of sharings, we can get some more insights to develop this kind of Chinese-based intercultural competence series. Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Wang.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Dai. That's how you can read our English book. Maybe this book will answer your question for more details.
And also, I wanted
I will do.
for Professor Anatoly's question, particularly about the policy and practical for the leadership part, the suggestions. But actually, based on my own observations, I noticed, the nationalism in Chinese context are rising in recent years. But, for the intercultural competence or internationalizations on the policy level, people and the university still, say we need to internationalize our, higher education, all of those things. But practically, many kind of localized practice or national-based kind of practice actually being, emphasized by the practice or by the policies or by the, the whole higher education field. Actually, developing intercultural competence in the current China, in the modern China, in the current stage, we don't know what's going to be in the futures. Is that the intercultural competence with Chinese characteristics maybe in the future would be emerge as something in other places, in other similar to other places. We cannot just think, in the Chinese context, the students will develop fully kind of intercultural competence as the Western scholars proposed or identified, or as normal as before the previous kind of ISC. Maybe a new type of ISCs will be emerged from younger generations through different kind of strategies under the complex policy influences. So actually, I think this area somehow is a gray area. It's in the middle between the internationalization and the nationalism. So this would be a challenge for the policy leaders and also for the universities. Some elite universities may have more resources to do that, but some regional universities, some provincial universities, they may don't have these kind of policy intentions to do that. So that's also a very individualized, mentions. If individual students they want to do that, actually they can do many things by themselves. But for the university, it's more like organizational activities. It's much more complex than what we imagined. Yeah, some kind of That's all for my. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We approach the end of this hour, and I can see that there are many more interesting ideas and questions that emerge in the process of your investigation. And I wish you good luck with the further research projects in this field. I think it's the studies that you are working on are very important, and in this current world, as you just noticed about these tensions emerging in the national and international uh, agendas that nations actually face. So I guess this is a subject for conversation, discussion across many systems around the world. So it was really interesting to see a little bit or learn a little bit more about the Chinese context and the Chinese approaches and theorization in this area, as well as your empirical kind of insights. So thanks again. This was great discussion. Colleagues, please read the papers by Dr. Wan and Dr. Dai. And we hope to see you again. And those in China, in this region, we wish you a great Spring Festival or Lunar New Year. So enjoy holidays and have some good rest. Thank you very much.